His mother called her a gold digger and threw her out into the streets, pregnant, homeless, with nothing. For an entire year, she fought alone while he was sent to London, completely unaware he even had a son. The family lawyers called her a liar. Society called her a prostitute. But when that judge read those DNA results out loud in court, 99.9% match. The wealthy mother who had spent months calling Amaka a fraud was now staring at her own grandson. This is how one DNA test destroyed a year of lies. Hold on. Before you go any further, make sure you're subscribed. It's quick, it's free, and it helps us create even more awesome videos for you. Thank you. Amaka was born in the servants' quarters of the Okonkwo mansion, a sprawling estate in the heart of Ikoyi, Lagos. Her mother, Ngozi, had worked as a live-in housekeeper for the wealthy Okonkwo family for over 20 years. Amaka grew up watching the Okonkwo children, Chidera, Kelechi, and Adana, live lives of luxury while she wore their hand-me-down clothes and ate leftovers from their elaborate meals. The contrast was stark and painful, but Ngozi always told her daughter to be grateful. "We have a roof over our heads and food in our bellies," she would say. "That's more than many people have." Despite their different circumstances, Amaka was allowed to play with the Okonkwo children when they were young. Chief Okonkwo, the family patriarch, was a kind man who treated the staff with respect. He even paid for Amaka's education at a good public school, saying every child deserved a chance. But as the years passed and the children grew older, the invisible line between them became more visible. The Okonkwo children attended expensive private schools and international universities, while Amaka studied hard at her public school, dreaming of a better life. She was beautiful, intelligent, and determined, with smooth dark skin, bright eyes, and a smile that could light up a room. But in the eyes of Lagos society, she would always be just the maid's daughter. Still, Amaka refused to let her circumstances define her future. She studied harder than anyone, determined to break free from poverty through education. Emeka Okonkwo was the youngest child and only son of Chief Okonkwo. He was tall, handsome, and carried himself with the easy confidence of someone who had never known struggle. Unlike his older sisters who were somewhat snobbish, Emeka had inherited his father's kind heart. He was studying business administration at the University of Lagos, preparing to take over the family's vast import-export business. He drove expensive cars, wore designer clothes, and had every material thing a young man could want. But despite his privileged life, there was something humble about him that set him apart from other wealthy young men. Emeka was different from his wealthy friends. He never looked down on the staff at home, always greeting them warmly and asking about their families. He had known Amaka since they were children, and even as teenagers, he still talked to her when he came home from university. His sisters would scold him, saying it wasn't proper for someone of his status to be so friendly with the help. His mother, Lady Okonkwo, a proud and status-conscious woman, would remind him constantly about maintaining proper boundaries. "You must remember your position in society," she would say coldly. But Emeka didn't care about such things. He saw people as people, not as their social class. And lately he had started seeing Amaka not as the maid's daughter, but as a beautiful, intelligent young woman who deserved respect and admiration. The more he talked to her, the more fascinated he became. Amaka was now 19 years old and in her first year at Lagos State University, studying accounting. She had won a scholarship based on her excellent grades, making her mother incredibly proud. Every evening after classes, she would return to the Okonkwo mansion, where she still lived in the servants' quarters with her mother. She would help her mother with some chores before settling down to study late into the night. Her small room was filled with textbooks and notebooks, a shrine to her ambition and determination. She knew education was her only ticket out of poverty. Emeka, now 23 and in his final year at university, had started coming home more often. He claimed it was because he needed peace and quiet to work on his final project, but the truth was more complicated. He had begun to look forward to the brief conversations he had with Amaka when their paths crossed in the compound. Sometimes, late at night when everyone was asleep, they would sit in the garden and talk for hours. Amaka would tell him about her dreams of becoming a chartered accountant and starting her own firm. Emeka would share his fears about taking over the family business and living up to his father's expectations. These conversations were innocent at first, just two young people finding comfort in each other's company. But slowly, something deeper was growing between them, something that both excited and terrified them because they knew society would never accept it. The class divide between them was too wide. It happened on a warm Saturday evening. Chief Okonkwo and his wife had traveled to Abuja for a business meeting, and the older daughters were both married and living in their own homes. The house was unusually quiet. Emeka was alone in the main house, working on his laptop in the living room. Amaka had just finished helping her mother clean the kitchen and was heading back to the quarters when Emeka called out to her. "Amaka, can you help me with something?" he asked. She walked into the living room, surprised to find him struggling with an Excel spreadsheet. "I know you're studying accounting," he said with an embarrassed smile. "This financial projection is driving me crazy. Can you take a look?" Amaka sat down beside him, and as she explained the formulas and calculations, their hands accidentally touched on the keyboard. The touch sent an electric current through both of them. They looked at each other, and in that moment, everything changed. Emeka leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away, but Amaka didn't move. Their first kiss was soft, tentative, and filled with the weight of crossing a forbidden line. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathing heavily. "We can't do this," Amaka whispered, tears forming in her eyes. "I know," Emeka replied, his hand gently cupping her face. "But I can't help how I feel about you." That night marked the beginning of their secret romance, a love that would bring both joy and devastating consequences. They both knew they were playing with fire. For the next 6 months, Emeka and Amaka conducted their relationship in absolute secrecy. They would meet late at night in the garden, hidden from view by the large mango trees. Sometimes Emeka would take her for drives in his car, parking at quiet beaches where no one they knew would see them. He would pick her up a few blocks away from the house, and she would duck down in the seat until they were far from their neighborhood. The secrecy added intensity to their relationship, every stolen moment feeling precious and dangerous. Every kiss felt like it might be their last. Amaka's mother, Ngozi, began to notice changes in her daughter. She was happier, more distracted, and often smiled at her phone. But Ngozi was too busy with her duties to investigate, and she trusted her daughter completely. Emeka's family noticed he was spending more time at home, but they assumed he was being responsible and focusing on his studies. His mother was pleased, thinking her son was finally taking his future seriously. Only Adana, his middle sister who occasionally visited, seemed suspicious. She had caught Emeka smiling at his phone several times and noticed how his eyes followed Amaka whenever she was around. But she said nothing, thinking perhaps she was imagining things. The lovers were careful, never touching in public, never letting their eyes linger too long on each other when others were present. But the secret was becoming harder to keep, and both knew that eventually, the truth would come out. It was only a matter of time. Amaka first suspected something was wrong when she missed her period. Then came the morning sickness, the fatigue, and the strange food cravings. She tried to ignore the signs, telling herself it was stress from her exams. But after missing her second period, she could no longer deny the truth. She bought a pregnancy test from a pharmacy far from her neighborhood, where no one would recognize her. When the test showed 2 clear lines, her world stopped spinning. She sat in the pharmacy bathroom, staring at the test, unable to breathe. She sat on the bathroom floor of her small room that night, the positive test in her trembling hands, trying to process what this meant. She was 19 years old, still in her first year of university, living in her employer's servants' quarters, and pregnant with the son of the house. The word disaster didn't even begin to cover it. She thought about her mother, who had sacrificed everything to give her an education and a chance at a better life. She thought about her scholarship, her dreams of becoming an accountant, her carefully planned future, all of it now in jeopardy. And she thought about Emeka, who was about to graduate and take his place in his family's business. How would he react? Would he stand by her, or would he abandon her to protect his privileged life? That night, she lay in bed staring at the ceiling, one hand on her still flat stomach, wondering how she would find the courage to tell him the truth. She was terrified. Amaka waited 3 agonizing days before she found the courage to tell Emeka. She sent him a text message, "We need to talk. It's urgent." That night, he snuck out to meet her in their usual spot in the garden. The moment he saw her face, pale and drawn with worry, he knew something was terribly wrong. "What is it?" he asked, taking her hands in his. Amaka took a deep breath, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air between them like a bomb waiting to explode. She couldn't look at his face, terrified of what she would see there. The words hung in the air between them. Emeka's face went through a series of emotions: shock, disbelief, fear, and then something else. He pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. "We'll figure this out," he said firmly. "I love you, Amaka. We'll get through this together." His response made her cry with relief. She had been so afraid he would reject her, blame her, or worse, suggest she get rid of the baby. Instead, he was holding her, promising to stand by her side. They talked for hours that night, discussing their options. Emeka wanted to tell his parents immediately, face the consequences, and marry her. But Amaka was terrified. "Your mother will never accept me," she said. "I'm just the maid's daughter. She'll think I trapped you on purpose. She'll call me a gold digger." Emeka disagreed, but deep down he knew Amaka was right to be worried. His mother's reaction would be catastrophic. Over the next 2 weeks, Emeka and Amaka tried to figure out the best way to break the news to their families. Emeka was determined to do the right thing. He loved Amaka genuinely, and the pregnancy had only made him more certain about his feelings. He started looking at small apartments they could rent, planning how he could support a family even if his parents cut him off financially. He was willing to sacrifice his comfortable life for the woman he loved and their unborn child. He even started sending out job applications secretly. But Amaka was drowning in fear and shame. Every time she saw her mother working tirelessly around the mansion, she felt like a failure. Ngozi had worked for over 20 years, saving every penny she could to give Amaka opportunities she never had. And now Amaka had thrown it all away. She hadn't told her mother yet, terrified of the disappointment she would see in her eyes. At university, she struggled to concentrate on her studies, knowing her academic future was now uncertain. Her best friend noticed she had been acting strange and asked if something was wrong, but Amaka couldn't bring herself to share the truth. The weight of the secret was crushing her, and she knew the longer they waited, the harder it would be. Finally, Emeka made the decision for both of them. "This weekend," he said firmly. "I'm telling my parents this weekend. We can't keep hiding this. You're already 2 months along. Soon, people will notice." Amaka nodded, feeling sick with dread. That Saturday morning, Chief Okonkwo and Lady Okonkwo were having breakfast on the veranda when Emeka joined them. His father was reading the newspaper, and his mother was talking on the phone with one of her society friends. Emeka's hands were sweating, and his heart was pounding so hard he thought it might burst out of his chest. "Father, Mother," he began, his voice cracking slightly. "I need to talk to you about something important." His voice sounded strange even to his own ears. Lady Okonkwo ended her phone call, sensing the seriousness in her son's tone. Chief Okonkwo put down his newspaper and looked at his son with concern. "What is it, my boy?" he asked gently. Emeka took a deep breath. "I'm in a relationship with someone, and she's pregnant. I want to marry her and take responsibility for our child." The silence that followed was deafening. Lady Okonkwo's face turned from confusion to horror as she processed the words. "Who is this girl?" she asked sharply. "Why haven't we met her? What family is she from? Emeka's throat felt dry. You know her, he said quietly. It's Amaka, Ngozi's daughter. The effect of these words was like a bomb detonating. Lady Okonkwo jumped to her feet, her face twisted with rage and disgust. Chief Okonkwo simply stared at his son in shocked disbelief. The maid's daughter? Lady Okonkwo shrieked. You got the maid's daughter pregnant? Have you lost your mind? Her voice could be heard throughout the entire compound. Lady Okonkwo's rage was terrifying to witness. She screamed at Emeka, calling him foolish and irresponsible. That girl has trapped you, she yelled. This was her plan all along. She and her mother probably planned this together to get their hands on our money. Emeka tried to defend Amaka, insisting that he was the one who had pursued her, that they genuinely loved each other. But his mother wasn't listening. She was pacing back and forth, her hands shaking with anger. Her expensive jewelry rattled as she moved, a symbol of the wealth she was convinced Amaka was after. Do you know what this will do to our reputation? Lady Okonkwo continued. What will people say? That my son was seduced by the help? That we raised him so poorly that he couldn't find a proper girl from a respectable family? Chief Okonkwo, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. His voice was calm but firm. Emeka, is this true? Are you certain the child is yours? Emeka nodded. Yes, father. I love Amaka. I want to marry her and raise our child together. Chief Okonkwo sighed deeply, suddenly looking much older. He was disappointed, not because of Amaka's social status, but because his son had been reckless. This is a complicated situation, he said quietly. But if the child is yours, you must take responsibility. However, marriage is a different matter. You need to think carefully about what you're doing. Lady Okonkwo turned on her husband in fury. You can't be serious. You're not actually considering allowing this marriage? She screamed at him. Lady Okonkwo stormed through the house, her anger echoing through every room. She found Ngozi in the kitchen, preparing lunch. Get out here, she screamed. Ngozi, confused and frightened, followed her employer out to the veranda where Chief Okonkwo and Emeka still sat. The moment Ngozi saw their faces, she knew something terrible had happened. Her legs felt weak beneath her. Did you know about this? Lady Okonkwo demanded. Did you know your daughter was sleeping with my son? Her voice dripped with contempt and accusation. Ngozi looked from Lady Okonkwo to Emeka, her face showing genuine confusion. Ma, I don't understand. What is happening? Lady Okonkwo laughed bitterly. Your daughter is pregnant with my son's child. And you expect me to believe you knew nothing about it? The words hit Ngozi like a physical blow. She staggered backward, her hand flying to her mouth. Amaka? Pregnant? She whispered, tears immediately filling her eyes. Her reaction was so genuine, so full of shock and pain, that even Lady Okonkwo could see she truly hadn't known. Ngozi turned to Emeka, her voice breaking. Is this true? Emeka couldn't meet her eyes, shame washing over him. I'm sorry. I love your daughter, and I want to marry her. Ngozi didn't wait to hear more. She turned and ran toward the servants' quarters, tears streaming down her face. Lady Okonkwo called after her, but Ngozi didn't stop. She burst into their small room where Amaka was studying, pulled her daughter to her feet, and slapped her hard across the face. The sound echoed in the small room. How could you? Ngozi cried, her voice raw with pain and betrayal. How could you do this to me? To yourself? I worked my fingers to the bone for 20 years to give you opportunities. To give you an education. To give you a chance at a better life. And this is what you do with it. Amaka stood there, her cheek burning from the slap, tears streaming down her face. She had never seen her mother like this, so broken, so devastated. The pain in her mother's eyes was worse than any physical punishment. Mama, I'm sorry, Amaka sobbed. I didn't plan this. We fell in love. It just happened. Ngozi laughed bitterly through her tears. You think this is love? That boy is from a completely different world. His mother will never accept you. They'll call you a gold digger, an opportunist who trapped her son. And what about your education? Your dreams? Your future? All gone. Amaka tried to reach for her mother, but Ngozi stepped back. Emeka says he wants to marry me, Amaka said desperately. He says he'll take care of us. Ngozi shook her head sadly. You foolish girl. He might mean it now, but when his family pressures him, when they threaten to disown him, when the reality of throwing away his privileged life sets in, he will leave you. And you'll be left alone with a child, no education, no future. Amaka saw something strange flash across her mother's face, a deep, old pain. What do you mean? She asked quietly. Ngozi turned away, wiping her tears. Pack your things, she said. We're leaving this place tonight. Within 2 hours, Ngozi had packed all their belongings into 2 old suitcases and several bags. She was moving with a determined fury, throwing clothes and belongings into bags without care. Amaka tried to stop her, tried to reason with her, but Ngozi was beyond reasoning. Mother, please, Amaka begged. We can't just leave. Where will we go? What about your job? Ngozi whirled around, her eyes red from crying. My job? My job is finished the moment Lady Okonkwo decides it is. Do you think she'll let me stay after this? We're leaving with whatever dignity we have left. She continued packing with shaking hands. Just as they were finishing packing, there was a knock on the door. It was Chief Okonkwo. He looked tired and sad. Ngozi, he said gently, please don't leave like this. Let's talk about this calmly. You've been with this family for 20 years. You're like family to us. Ngozi laughed bitterly. Like family? If I were truly like family, you wouldn't allow your wife to call my daughter a gold digger and a trap. No, Chief. We know our place. We're leaving. Chief Okonkwo sighed. I'm not asking you to leave. And Emeka has promised to take responsibility. Let's give this some time. Behind him, Lady Okonkwo appeared. Let them go, she said coldly. It's better this way. I'll send you 3 months' severance pay, Ngozi, for your years of service. But you and your daughter need to leave this house immediately. Chief Okonkwo tried to argue with his wife, but Lady Okonkwo was immovable. Emeka came running down, but his mother blocked his path. You've done enough damage, she hissed at him. Stay away from that girl. Emeka watched helplessly as Amaka and her mother walked out of the compound. By nightfall, Ngozi and Amaka found themselves standing on a street corner with their bags, having nowhere to go. Ngozi had called her younger sister, Adiz, who lived in a small one-room apartment in Surulere. Adiz agreed to let them stay temporarily, though her voice on the phone made it clear she wasn't happy about it. They took a bus across Lagos, 2 women with all their worldly possessions in bags, starting over from nothing. Amaka watched the city lights blur past the window, wondering how her life had changed so completely in just one day. Adiz's apartment was tiny, just 1 room with a small attached bathroom and a corner that served as a kitchen. She was a petty trader who sold clothes at Balogun Market, barely making enough to feed herself. When Ngozi and Amaka arrived, she looked at them with a mixture of pity and annoyance. You can stay for a few weeks, she said bluntly, but you need to find your own place quickly. I can't afford to feed 3 people, and now you say Amaka is pregnant. The judgment in her voice was clear. That night, Amaka lay on a thin mattress on the floor, her mother beside her, both staring at the ceiling of their new, cramped reality. The contrast to the spacious servants' quarters they had just left was stark. But more than the physical discomfort, what hurt most was the silence between them. Ngozi hadn't spoken to her daughter since they left the Okonkwo mansion, and Amaka didn't know how to bridge the gap. Her phone buzzed constantly with messages from Emeka, but she didn't have the courage to read them. She felt completely alone. Back at the Okonkwo mansion, Emeka was in turmoil. His mother had taken his car keys and posted the security guard outside his door to make sure he didn't leave. She was treating him like a prisoner in his own home. "This is for your own good," she told him through the door. "You need time to think clearly without that girl influencing you. In a few weeks, you'll realize this was all a mistake." But Emeka wasn't thinking clearly, he was panicking. He had tried calling Amaka dozens of times, but her phone was switched off. He had tried calling Amaka dozens of times, but her phone went straight to voicemail. He had sent messages that went undelivered. He had no idea where she and her mother had gone. His father came to his room that night. Chief Okonkwo looked exhausted, caught between his wife's fury and his son's desperation. "Where did they go?" Emeka asked immediately. "I need to find Amaka. She needs me. The baby needs me." Chief Okonkwo shook his head. "I don't know, son. Ngozi didn't tell me. She was too hurt and angry." He sat down heavily on Emeka's bed. "Your mother wants to send you abroad. She says you should finish your studies overseas, get away from this situation. She thinks that distance and time will make you forget about Amaka." Emeka jumped to his feet. "Forget about her? Father, I love her. And she's carrying my child. I can't just abandon them." Chief Okonkwo looked at his son with something like respect mixed with sadness. "I believe you, Emeka. But love isn't always enough. Your mother will make life impossible for Amaka if you stay. Think about what's best for everyone." Emeka felt trapped, torn between duty to his family and love for Amaka. Within a week, Lady Okonkwo had made all the arrangements. Emeka was being sent to London to complete a master's degree in business. His admission had been fast-tracked through family connections, and his flight was booked for the following Monday. Emeka fought against it with everything he had, but his mother was relentless. She controlled all the family money, and without her approval, Emeka had nothing. His father, though more sympathetic, ultimately sided with his wife to keep peace in the family. On the day before his flight, Emeka managed to escape the house. He went to Ngozi's old address, to every place he thought Amaka might be, but found nothing. He tried her phone number again and again. Finally, in desperation, he sent one last message. "Amaka, I don't know where you are, but I need you to know I love you. They're sending me to London tomorrow, but I will come back for you. I promise. Please wait for me. I will take care of you and our baby. I love you. Always." He pressed send, not knowing if she would ever read it. That night, Amaka finally turned on her phone. She saw the message and cried herself to sleep. By morning, Emeka was on a plane to London, and Amaka was facing the reality that she would raise their child alone. 3 months had passed since Emeka left. Amaka was now 5 months pregnant, her belly clearly showing. She had dropped out of university, unable to afford the fees or concentrate on studies while dealing with pregnancy symptoms and emotional turmoil. 3 months had passed since Emeka left for London. Amaka was now 5 months pregnant, her belly clearly showing. She had dropped out of university, unable to afford the fees or concentrate on studies while dealing with pregnancy symptoms and emotional turmoil. Her scholarship had been revoked when she stopped attending classes, and with it went her dreams of becoming an accountant. Every day felt like a funeral for the future she had planned. Ngozi had found work as a cleaner in a small office building, earning a fraction of what she made at the Okonkwo mansion. The salary barely covered their basic needs, and tensions in Adi's small apartment were reaching a breaking point. Amaka had heard nothing from Emeka since that last message. His phone number no longer worked, and all her attempts to reach him through social media had failed. It was as if he had vanished from the earth. Lady Okonkwo had done her job well. In her darkest moments, Amaka wondered if Emeka had simply given up on her and moved on with his life in London. Maybe his mother had been right all along. Maybe he had only loved her when it was convenient, when it was exciting and forbidden. Now that there were real consequences, perhaps he had chosen his comfortable life over her and their baby. The betrayal cut deeper than any physical pain. Ngozi watched her daughter sink deeper into depression. Despite her anger and disappointment, she couldn't help feeling sorry for Amaka. The girl had made a terrible mistake, but she was paying for it dearly. One evening, Ngozi finally spoke. "We need to talk about the future," she said quietly. "The baby will be here in 4 months." Ngozi took a deep breath and looked at her daughter with sadness in her eyes. "Amaka, I need to tell you something. Something I should have told you years ago." Amaka looked up, surprised by the tone in her mother's voice. "When I was 18 years old, younger than you are now, I fell in love with a man from a wealthy family. He was charming, handsome, and he promised me the world. I got pregnant with you." The words hung in the air like a revelation that changed everything. The revelation hit Amaka like cold water. "What? But you told me my father died when I was a baby." Ngozi shook her head, tears forming. "I lied. Your father didn't die. He abandoned us. When I told him I was pregnant, he denied you were his, just like they always do. His family called me a gold digger, said I was trying to trap their son. They offered me money to disappear and never contact them again. I was young and foolish, and I believed he loved me. I refused the money at first, thinking he would come back. But he never did. He married someone else from his own class and forgot we ever existed." Amaka felt like the room was spinning. Everything she thought she knew about her life was a lie. "Who was he?" she whispered. Ngozi wiped her tears. "It doesn't matter now. He made his choice 20 years ago. I'm telling you this so you understand. History is repeating itself. These rich men think they love us when it's convenient. But when their families pressure them, they always choose money over love. Always." Adiz, who had been listening from the corner, spoke up. "You need to get a lawyer," she said firmly. "That Okonkwo boy needs to pay child support. He can't just get you pregnant and run off to London like nothing happened. You have rights." Ngozi shook her head. "Lawyers cost money we don't have. And the Okonkwos will fight us every step of the way. They'll demand DNA tests, drag us through courts, and make our lives miserable. It's not worth it." But Adiz was insistent. "So what? You're just going to let him off completely? So you're just going to let him off? Raise his child alone while he lives his rich life in London? I know a lawyer who might help." Against her better judgment, Ngozi agreed. They contacted a lawyer named Mr. Adelik, a middle-aged man with a small practice. When they explained the situation, he listened carefully. "Without DNA proof, you have no case," he said. "The Okonkwos will simply deny that the child is Emeka's. You need to establish paternity first. Has Emeka acknowledged the pregnancy in writing? Any text messages, emails, anything?" Amaka remembered the messages Emeka had sent before leaving for London, but she had deleted them in anger and hurt. "No," she said quietly. "I have nothing." Mr. Adelik sighed. "Then we need to wait until the baby is born. Once the child is here, we can request a court-ordered DNA test. But I'll warn you, the Okonkwos will fight this with everything they have. They'll try to destroy your reputation, call you a liar and a gold digger. Are you prepared for that?" Amaka looked at her growing belly and nodded. "I have no choice," she said. "This baby deserves to know his father." 4 months later, on a rainy October evening, Amaka went into labor. The pains started in the afternoon and quickly intensified. Ngozi took her daughter to the nearest general hospital, a public facility that was crowded, understaffed, and chaotic. They waited for hours in the labor ward, Amaka writhing in pain on a hard bed while overworked nurses rushed between patients. The experience was frightening and lonely. When the baby finally came at 2 a.m., it was a boy, a beautiful, healthy baby boy with Emeka's eyes and nose. The resemblance was so striking that even the nurse commented on it. "This baby looks exactly like someone," she said with a knowing smile. Amaka held her son for the first time, and despite all the pain, struggle, and heartbreak, she felt an overwhelming surge of love. This little person was hers, a part of her and Emeka, proof that their love had been real even if it had ended in betrayal. Ngozi looked at her grandson and felt her heart soften. Whatever mistakes had been made, this innocent child deserved love and protection. "What will you name him?" Ngozi asked softly. Amaka looked down at her son's perfect little face. Chidi, she said. Chidi means God exists. Because despite everything, God has given me this blessing. Ngozi nodded approvingly. Chidi is a good name. Strong and meaningful. That night, as Amaka held her sleeping son, she made a silent promise. She would fight for his rights, no matter what it cost her. Emeka would acknowledge this child, even if she had to drag him to court to make it happen. Her son deserved a father. 2 weeks after Chidi's birth, Mr. Adelik filed a paternity suit against Emeka Okonkwo on Amaka's behalf. The legal documents were served to the Okonkwo family mansion. The suit requested DNA testing to establish paternity and demanded child support. Within days, a response came from the Okonkwo's expensive law firm. The letter was cold and threatening. It categorically denied that Emeka was the father and accused Amaka of trying to extort money from a respectable family. It warned that if she continued with these baseless accusations, they would countersue her for defamation and fraud. The letter shook Amaka's confidence, but Mr. Adelik had expected this reaction. This is standard intimidation, he explained. They're trying to scare you into backing down. But we have the law on our side. Every child has the right to know their father, and every father has a responsibility to their child. We'll push for the DNA test. The case slowly made its way through the Nigerian court system. Months passed. Chidi grew from a newborn to a crawling baby, and still there was no resolution. The Okonkwo lawyers used every delay tactic possible, filing motions requesting postponements, challenging jurisdiction. They were hoping Amaka would run out of money and patience and give up. Lady Okonkwo had begun a whisper campaign in Lagos society, spreading rumors that Amaka was a prostitute who didn't even know who had fathered her child. The gossip was vicious and hurtful. Meanwhile, in London, Emeka had no idea his son had been born. His mother had intercepted all attempts at communication. He sent letters to the mansion asking about Amaka, but they were destroyed. He called, but his mother told the staff to say Amaka had moved away and left no forwarding address. Finally, after 8 months of legal battles, the court ordered a DNA test. The Okonkwos could no longer delay. However, there was a problem. Emeka was still in London, and Lady Okonkwo claimed he was too busy with his studies to return to Nigeria for such nonsense. The judge was not pleased. This is a serious matter concerning a child's paternity, the judge said firmly. Mr. Emeka Okonkwo must present himself for DNA testing within 30 days, or I will rule in favor of the plaintiff by default. Lady Okonkwo was furious, but she had no choice. She called her son in London and told him he needed to come home immediately. There's a girl claiming you fathered her child, she said coldly. We need you here to prove these lies false once and for all. Emeka's heart stopped. What girl? What child? He demanded. The maid's daughter, Amaka, his mother said with disgust. She had a baby and is now claiming it's yours. She's trying to extort money from us. Emeka felt like the world had tilted. Amaka had had the baby? Their baby? And she had been fighting for months while he knew nothing about it? When was the baby born? He asked, his voice shaking. I don't know and I don't care, his mother snapped. You're coming home to do this DNA test and prove that the child is not yours. Then we'll sue that girl for everything she has. But Emeka was already booking the next flight to Lagos. He was coming home, not to deny his child, but to finally claim what was his. Emeka arrived in Lagos 3 days later. His mother had sent a driver to pick him up from the airport, expecting him to come straight home. Instead, Emeka directed the driver to Mr. Adelik's office. He had found the lawyer's information from the court documents his mother had shown him. When he walked into the small office in Yaba, Mr. Adelik looked up in surprise. Mr. Okonkwo? He said uncertainly. Yes, Emeka said. I need to see Amaka. Please. I need to see her and my child. Mr. Adelik studied the young man carefully. He saw genuine emotion in his eyes, love, desperation, regret. Your family has been fighting this paternity claim for months, Mr. Adeleke said slowly. Your mother has said terrible things about Amaka, calling her a liar and worse. And now you want to see her? Emeka ran his hands through his hair in frustration. I didn't know. I've been in London. My mother never told me about the baby. She's been blocking all communication. I sent letters, I tried calling, nothing got through. I only found out 3 days ago when she told me I needed to come home for a DNA test. He pulled out his phone and showed Mr. Adeleke months of unsent messages, letters he had written but never had an address to send to. I love Amaka, Emeka said, his voice breaking. I have loved her from the beginning. I never wanted to leave her, but my mother forced me onto that plane. I've been trying to find her for over a year. Please let me see her. Mr. Adeleke saw the truth in his eyes. Wait here, he said. He called Amaka. There's someone here who wants to see you. Amaka arrived at the lawyer's office an hour later, carrying baby Chidi in her arms. She had lost weight, and there were dark circles under her eyes from months of stress and sleepless nights. When she walked into the office and saw Emeka standing there, she froze. For a moment, neither of them could speak. Then Emeka's eyes moved to the baby in her arms, his son. Amaka, he whispered, taking a step forward. Tears were streaming down his face. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Amaka felt her own tears coming, but she held them back. Your mother said you didn't want us, Amaka said, her voice cold despite her tears. She said you denied the baby was yours. That you called me a liar. Emeka shook his head violently. No. I never said that. I never knew you had the baby. My mother kept everything from me. I've been searching for you for over a year. He pulled out his phone, showing her all the messages he had tried to send, all returned as undeliverable. I love you, Amaka. I never stopped loving you. And I want to be a father to our son. Please, give me a chance to make this right. Amaka looked at him, torn between the love she still felt and the hurt of the past year. It's too late, she said quietly. Your mother has destroyed my reputation. People call me a gold digger, a liar. She's told everyone I'm a prostitute who doesn't even know who fathered my child. Emeka's face hardened with anger. I'll make her apologize for every word. I'll make this right, Amaka. I promise you. He looked at baby Chidi, reaching out tentatively. Can I hold him? Please. Amaka hesitated, then slowly placed Chidi in his father's arms. The DNA test was scheduled for the following week at a certified laboratory. Both families were required to be present, along with their lawyers. The atmosphere in the waiting room was tense and hostile. Lady Okonkwo sat on one side with her expensive lawyer, glaring at Amaka with pure hatred. Ngozi sat beside her daughter, holding baby Chidi protectively. Chief Okonkwo had come as well, looking sad and tired. He nodded at Ngozi in greeting, a small gesture that his wife noticed with fury. Emeka arrived separately from his parents. He walked straight to Amaka and sat beside her, ignoring his mother's furious glare. What do you think you're doing? Lady Okonkwo hissed. Sitting with my family, Emeka said firmly. It was the first time he had openly defied his mother, and everyone in the room felt the shift. The DNA testing process was simple. Samples were taken from Emeka's cheek, then from baby Chidi's cheek. The laboratory technician explained that results would be ready in 5 to 7 business days and would be sent directly to the court. As they waited for the swabs to be processed, Lady Okonkwo couldn't contain herself. This is a waste of time and money, she announced loudly. That child looks nothing like my son. But everyone in the room could see she was lying. Baby Chidi had Emeka's eyes, his nose, his mouth. The resemblance was unmistakable. Even the laboratory technician had done a double take when she saw father and son together. Chief Okonkwo looked at his grandson, because in his heart he already knew the truth, and felt a deep sadness for all the time that had been wasted, all the hurt that had been caused. The 7 days waiting for the DNA results were the longest of Amaka's life. Emeka called her every day, begging to see her and Chidi. At first, she refused, still hurt and angry about the past year. But gradually she softened. She agreed to meet him at a park, a neutral ground where they could talk without their families interfering. Emeka brought gifts for Chidi, clothes, toys, and diapers. He was trying to make up for a year of absence in a single afternoon. "I've enrolled in a local business school to finish my degree here," Emeka told her. "I'm not going back to London. I want to be here for you and Chidi, regardless of what my family says." Amaka studied his face, looking for signs of doubt or deception, but found only sincerity. "Your mother will never accept me," she said. "She spent a year trying to destroy my reputation. Even if the DNA test proves you're Chidi's father, she'll never welcome me into your family." Emeka took her hand. "Then I'll leave my family. I'll get a job, find us a place to live. We don't need their money or approval. I just need you and our son." Amaka wanted to believe him, but she was afraid. What if he was making promises he couldn't keep? What if, when faced with actually giving up his privileged life, he changed his mind? "Let's wait for the DNA results," she said carefully. "Then we'll see what happens next." But in her heart, she was starting to hope again. Maybe, just maybe, they could still build the family she had dreamed of. Meanwhile, back at the Okonkwo mansion, Lady Okonkwo was preparing for war. The day the DNA results were scheduled to be revealed in court, the courtroom was packed. Word had spread through Lagos society about the case, the wealthy Okonkwo heir and the maid's daughter. People came to witness the drama, to see if the gold digger would be exposed or if the rich family would be brought down. Amaka sat with her mother and Mr. Adelik, holding Chidi close. Across the aisle, the Okonkwo family sat with their legal team. But there was a notable difference. Emeka was sitting on Amaka's side of the courtroom. The judge entered, and everyone stood. The atmosphere was electric with anticipation. "I have received the certified DNA test results from the laboratory," the judge announced. "These results have been verified and are conclusive." Lady Okonkwo sat up straighter, confident that the test would prove Amaka had been lying. She had convinced herself that the child couldn't possibly be her son's. The judge opened the envelope and read silently for a moment. Then he looked up at the courtroom. "According to the DNA analysis, there is a 99.9% probability that Mr. Emeka Okonkwo is the biological father of the minor child, Chidi." The courtroom erupted. Lady Okonkwo's face went white with shock. Amaka burst into tears of relief. Ngozi closed her eyes and whispered a prayer of thanks. And Emeka smiled, finally having official proof of what his heart had always known. The judge banged his gavel for order. "Mr. Okonkwo, you are hereby legally recognized as the father of this child. You are responsible for child support and have the right to visitation or custody as determined by further court proceedings." After the court session, chaos erupted outside the courthouse. Journalists who had been following the case surrounded Amaka and Emeka, shouting questions. "Miss Amaka, how does it feel to be vindicated? Mr. Okonkwo, will you marry the mother of your child? Lady Okonkwo, do you have any comment on calling Amaka a gold digger when the child is proven to be your grandson?" Lady Okonkwo pushed through the crowd without answering, her face a mask of fury and humiliation. Her expensive lawyer tried to make a statement about respecting the family's privacy, but no one was listening. Inside a quiet cafe nearby, Emeka, Amaka, Ngozi, and baby Chidi sat together. Chief Okonkwo had followed them there, wanting to finally meet his grandson properly. "I owe you an apology," Chief Okonkwo said to Amaka. "I should have stood up to my wife from the beginning. I should have protected you and my grandson. I'm deeply sorry for what you've been through." Amaka nodded, accepting his apology. Chief Okonkwo held Chidi for the first time, and the baby grabbed his grandfather's finger. "He's beautiful," Chief Okonkwo said, his voice thick with emotion. "He has the Okonkwo eyes." He looked at Ngozi. "You did a good job raising his mother. She's a strong, brave young woman." Ngozi nodded, still wary but slightly softened. Emeka reached across the table and took Amaka's hand. "Now that we have legal proof, will you marry me?" he asked. "Not because you have to, not because of the baby, but because I love you and I want to spend my life with you?" Amaka looked at him, at their son, at the future that suddenly seemed possible. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I'll marry you." 3 months later, Emeka and Amaka were married in a small, intimate ceremony. It wasn't the grand society wedding that would have been expected for an Okonkwo heir, but it was filled with love and genuine joy. Chief Okonkwo attended and paid for everything, trying to make amends. Lady Okonkwo refused to come, still bitter and humiliated by how everything had turned out. She had become a subject of gossip in her social circles, the woman who had called her own grandson illegitimate, who had tried to destroy an innocent girl's reputation. Emeka had moved out of the family mansion and rented a modest apartment for his new family. He had gotten a job at a mid-level company, refusing to work in his family's business while his mother was still there. The salary wasn't huge, but it was enough. Amaka had enrolled in evening classes to complete her accounting degree, with Emeka watching Chidi while she studied. Life wasn't easy, but it was theirs, built on love and mutual respect rather than wealth and social status. At the small wedding reception, Ngozi gave a speech that brought everyone to tears. "When my daughter told me she was pregnant, I was furious and heartbroken. I thought history was repeating itself, that she would face the same abandonment I had faced 20 years ago. But Emeka proved me wrong. He fought for his family. He chose love over money, his child over comfort. He became the man I wish my daughter's father had been." She raised her glass. "To Emeka and Amaka, may your love continue to overcome every obstacle." Later that night, as Amaka and Emeka held Chidi together in their small apartment, they felt richer than any mansion could have made them. 5 years later, Amaka stood in her own accounting firm office, looking out at the Lagos skyline. She had graduated top of her class, gotten her professional certification, and, with a loan from Chief Okonkwo, had started her own small practice. The firm was growing steadily, serving small businesses and individuals who couldn't afford the big corporate firms. Emeka had started his own import business, separate from his family's empire, and it was thriving. They had moved into a larger house and had welcomed a daughter, Adora, 2 years ago. The family relationships had slowly healed. Lady Okonkwo had eventually softened after years of missing her son and grandchildren. She had apologized to Amaka, stiffly and formally, but sincerely. She now saw Chidi and Adora regularly and had grudgingly admitted that Amaka was a good wife to her son. Chief Okonkwo doted on his grandchildren and had developed a warm relationship with Amaka. He often told people, "My daughter-in-law built herself from nothing. She's stronger than most people I know." The biggest change had come to Ngozi. After years of pain and bitterness about her own past, she had tracked down Amaka's biological father, a wealthy businessman who had denied her existence. She had requested a DNA test, which proved he was Amaka's father. The man, now elderly and filled with regret, had apologized and tried to make amends. Ngozi didn't want his money, but she wanted acknowledgement, and she got it. As Amaka locked up her office and headed home to her family, she thought about the journey that had brought her here. They had called her a gold digger, accused her of trapping a rich man. But the DNA results had silenced everyone and proved the truth. She had never wanted money. She had wanted love, family, and the chance to build a life with the man she loved. And in the end, she had gotten all three. What would you do in Amaka's situation? Would you have fought for child support or walked away to avoid public humiliation? Was Lady Okonkwo's behavior understandable given her desire to protect her family's reputation, or was she simply cruel and classist? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Like this video if you believe Amaka deserved justice. Comment below with your thoughts on Lady Okonkwo's transformation. Share this story with someone who needs to hear that truth prevails. Subscribe for more powerful stories of justice and redemption.